I bet that the last day of school will be one of the scariest days of your entire life. And let me tell you why. Welcome back to my channel. Here are 4 scary, true last day of school horror stories. Viewer discretion is advised for this one, guys. Some of these stories might be triggering for some people, so please skip if you're easily triggered. Let's get right into it. Part 1. The Clown. It was the last day of school, and we were all getting ready to go home for the summer. Little did I know it would be the scariest day of my life. As soon as the morning bell rang, we were all running to our lockers to stuff our stuff in there as fast as possible so we could get out of there. I remember shoving books and papers into my locker, and then I heard footsteps behind me. At first, I thought nothing of it. My friend was probably coming to chat before we headed home for the summer. But then when I turned around, my blood ran cold. There stood a figure in my locker staring directly at me with a sinister smile. I started screaming and tried to run away, but he was quick and grabbed onto my arm. I struggled to free myself from his grasp, but it was no use. He dragged me back to my locker and forced me open. I shut my eyes tight, bracing for whatever was about to happen. But instead of pain, I felt something wet and slimy touch my face. I opened my eyes to see the clown from the circus that had come to perform for us earlier that day standing over me. His painted smile was even wider than before, and his eyes seemed to glow an eerie red in the dim locker light. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The clown leaned closer, his hot, fetid breath washing over me. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as his hand slowly reached out towards me. Then everything went black. When I woke up, I found myself lying on the cold concrete floor of the school. My head pounded and I could feel blood trickling down my face. I stumbled to my feet and looked around. The halls were empty, and the only sound that could be heard was the pounding of my own heart. That's when I noticed a small crowd of students gathered near my locker, their faces pale and their eyes wide with fear. They had seen what the clown had done to me, and they were afraid for themselves. I don't remember much after that. The next thing I knew, I was being rushed to the hospital by I looked back at the school one last time before I was taken away, and that's when I saw him. The clown was standing on the roof of the school, his silhouette outlined against the bright summer sun. He was waving to me, his smile impossibly wide, his eyes burning red in the sunlight. I've never seen him again, but sometimes I still see his smile in my nightmares. Part 2. Final Exam. I can't believe I'm telling you this, but on the last day of school, I cheated on my final exam. It was the end of the year, and I was so relieved to have made it through another year of school. I was just glad that I wouldn't have to see my teachers or deal with the drama of my classmates for a while. So when I got to my final exam and saw that it was going to be really hard, I panicked. I started cheating, but I couldn't focus because I kept hearing whispers in my ear. I would jump every time I heard them, which only made me more nervous, and it made it harder to cheat. Then suddenly, the lights flickered and died. I was in complete darkness, but I could still hear the whispers all around me. They were getting louder and more distorted, almost like they were coming from inside my head. I could feel a presence in the room with me, something dark and evil. I tried to stay calm, but my heart was beating fast and my hands were shaking. Then I heard a voice. It was a raspy whisper that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It said, "You can't hide from us forever." That's when I knew I had to do something. I had to get out of that room. I started to scream for help, but my voice sounded weak and pathetic. Then I heard a crash and a voice. "Too late," it said, and then everything went black. When I woke up, I was lying on the floor. I could feel blood trickling down my face, and I could hear the sirens in the distance. I sat up and looked around. The room was empty, and the only sound that could be heard was the pounding of my own heart. That's when I realized that I wasn't alone. Standing in the corner of the room was a figure. It was tall and thin, and its eyes glowed red in the darkness. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The figure started to approach me, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. Then it spoke. His voice was raspy and cold. "You can't hide from us forever," it said, and then it lunged at me. Part 3. Never Go Back. After the final bell of the year rang, everyone started packing up to go home. The school was buzzing with excitement. Summer vacation had finally begun, but I couldn't shake this feeling that something wasn't right. I quickly finished packing and headed to the door, eager to escape the stifling walls of the school. But as I reached for the handle, I heard a voice behind me. "Don't go yet." I froze and slowly turned around to face the source of the voice. There in the doorway stood a figure I hadn't seen all year. His name was Jason. He had transferred Medea to another school and we hadn't seen him since. But now he was back, and his eyes were filled with an eerie glow. Confused, I asked, "What do you want?" Jason stepped forward and his voice dropped to a whisper. "You shouldn't be here anymore. You need to leave." His words sent shivers down my spine, and I felt a sudden urge to flee. But before I could move, Jason reached out and grabbed my arm. His grip was vice-like, and his eyes seemed to bore into mine. "You won't leave," he hissed. His words echoed in my ears, and I struggled to break free from his grasp, but it was no use. Jason's strength was unnatural, and I could feel myself being pulled towards him. Just then, a group of my friends approached, and they must have seen the terror on my face, because they quickly came to my aid. They pulled Jason off of me and I stumbled backward, knocking over a chair in the process. Jason stared at me for a moment longer, his eyes burning into mine, and then he disappeared down the hallway. I wanted to warn the others, but it was too late. Jason was already gone. From that day forward, strange things started happening. People began to go missing, never to be seen again. And every time someone vanished, we found a single white feather nearby. We knew Jason had taken them and we were terrified he would come for us next. Part 4. The basement. I was always curious about the basement of my school. It was never used and the door was always locked. One day I decided I was going to find out what was down there. It was the last day of school and the halls were empty. Perfect. No one would stop me. I found the key to the basement door in a janitoress closet, and I made my way downstairs. The stairs were old and creaky and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. As I reached the bottom of the stairs, I turned on the light switch, but the only sound that greeted me was a loud buzz. The light bulb didn't work. I reached out to feel the wall for the switch in the darkness, but my fingers brushed against something else, something cold and slimy. I screamed and jumped back, knocking over a bucket of water. The sound echoed in the darkness, and I could hear something moving behind me. I turned and saw a pair of glowing eyes staring at me. I ran, making my way further into the basement. I could hear whatever it was following close behind me, its heavy breathing echoing in the darkness. Then I saw a light. It was coming from a crack in the wall. I crawled through the opening and found myself in a small room. On the floor was a book, and I opened it to find a message written inside. It read, "Beware the shadows, for they hold the key to your eternal slumber." Suddenly I felt a cold hand on my shoulder, and I turned to see a creature from my worst nightmares. It had glowing red eyes and sharp teeth, and as it lunged at me, I screamed, and that's when I woke up. Thanks for watching. Which story was your favorite? Tell me in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe and share for more amazing videos. See you next time.